Another is, I think, really there's a need to be more strategic because there's currently a oversupply of solar panels. It's no longer, it used to be, no exaggeration, 12 to 18 months ago, if you produced a solar panel, you could sell it at a profit. Hands down, there's no question about it. That's not the case anymore. So now there's an oversupply. So you have to be more strategic. What is the differentiation that you've got in your product that you can offer to the customers? It's actually becoming much more like a real industry, in my view. It's really growing up. So that causes us to be a lot more strategic. And for Solaria, it's really more about, whereas before, a year ago, it was much more of how fast can we grow, how much revenue can we generate in the next 6 to 12 months. That's less important now, as opposed to how is the company going to be positioned in a couple of years when this industry takes off again. Okay, so very different thought process, very different focal points for us. And I mentioned capital efficiency is critical. I also think there's very little room for error. Startups, typically in startups, you make a lot of mistakes and you learn from them. And all companies have done that. All startups have done that. Solaria has done that as well. Well, now there's a lot less room for mistakes and error. You have to manage much more tightly. So the pressure is on. But at the same time, I think it's also an opportunity, which I'll talk about. Another is that before there was a big focus on speed, and it was almost speed at any cost. And now it's speed is still important, but speed at low cost is much more important because again, it's very important to realize that it's much more of a cash-constrained world that we live in, and so it's important to manage the company, very, very efficiently and tightly. I think partnerships are going to be a big driver for the industry going forward, especially for startups. And one thing that we're seeing in terms of some of the larger companies in the solar industry sector is that you're seeing some that are getting more powerful and some that are getting weaker. And again, in a downturn, this happens, and this is natural. So it's important to pick your partners very carefully. Before, again, the last few years, a lot of companies became very successful in the solar industry. They went public. They raised a lot of money in IPOs. That does not mean that they will be around in the next few years. And so picking partners is very critical, and also having partnerships is very critical because the solar industry is, and to a large extent, a lot of elements of the clean tech industry, wind is already there. It's big business. It's an energy business. And when you're talking about an energy business, it's actually not so much like Silicon Valley. It's much more like utilities and much more conservative industry where bankability is a big factor. Just to give you an example, one of the big questions that any company like us gets asked when we look to sell our product is, how do we know you're going to be around in 5 years? What's your balance sheet like? Again, not something that you're used to being asked in Silicon Valley. So having deep partnerships, one of the reasons why we raised money from Q-Cells, which is the largest solar cell manufacturer in the world, was really having an industrial partner was an important part because we could then go to the market and show that not only are we funded by venture capitalists, but also by large industry players. So very important dynamic is really that bankability and having the right partners around the table, and even more so now. I think the other big difference is HR. It's really not about recruiting right now. Solaria is not hiring many people today. There's a few people that we're looking for to hire, but we don't have a big hiring plan this year. It's really about managing the people you have more effectively. And to some extent, I think that's a big plus because a lot of times when companies grow too quickly, they don't build the right systems, they don't build the right culture in place. It's just grow. And now it's much more of a methodical process of, we have very smart people, we've got a lot of good people. How do we organize in the most efficient manner? How do we deliver on the results in the most efficient manner? And I think those are the kinds of things that build very strong companies for the future. And that's my last point in here, is that I think it's a real opportunity in this downturn to build a great company, much more so than in a hyper-growth environment. If you look at a lot of the great companies that are out there today, they were built during very difficult economic times, and it brings out the best, and it really separates the wheat from the chaff. And that's what we see as an opportunity for Solaria, is to come out of here, out of this downturn as a much stronger company, as a much stronger player, and use this time to build strategically what we need to be a leader in the next few years. So the next thing I'd like to address is how I think it will be to manage the company 6 months to 12 months from now, and I really don't know. I have some thoughts on that I'd like to offer, but I mean it's really something that I really have no idea what things are going to be like. The economy could and the industry could turn around, and it could be worse than it is today. But the key thing is to be prepared for whatever may happen. And that's, for us, we're looking at how to make sure that we have a very long cash runway, that we have very strong strategic partnerships, so that we can succeed quickly if the market turns around. And if it doesn't, we're okay, because we're prepared for very tough economic times. And from my point of view of managing the company, that's really all we can do, because no one has a crystal ball. And you can talk to 10 different experts, and they all have different viewpoints on what's going to happen in both the economy and the industry. Lastly, just a few points on the government impacts and what's going on, in particular as a clean tech company. So the U.S. administration's policies, for us, I really see three ways that it can impact us, and those are all positive impacts. The first is that the most fundamental thing is the market. U.S. used to be the largest market. California used to be the largest market for solar in the world, and therefore U.S. used to be the largest market for solar in the world. Well, today, we are way behind. Germany and Spain and Italy are actually larger markets for solar than the U.S. is. This year, I think that U.S. has the chance to become either number 2 or number 3, but Germany will be number 1 by far, and by almost an order of magnitude in a very cloudy country. So we have a great opportunity here. If Germany can become a huge market 5 times the size of the U.S., we should be easily 5 times the size of Germany. And that really is the fundamental driver for us, is the market in the U.S. is going to grow. It was unclear how fast it was going to grow a year ago, but it's very clear it's going to grow very rapidly. It already is. It's going to double at least this year from last year, and I think it has the potential to triple next year because of a lot of projects that are going in. So the bailout package and the stimulus package both have very strong, favorable legislation in there for promoting demand for solar. And having demand is the first step, and we see U.S. as a key market for us. The second is manufacturing. As many of you know, there's a big focus now on setting up manufacturing in the U.S. I don't think setting up manufacturing in the U.S. is easy, but I think it can be done. And we are definitely looking at it, especially as this market is here. Solar panels are large, bulky devices. It makes a lot of sense to produce in the local market. And there are more manufacturing incentives now. So we're focusing on looking at manufacturing in the U.S., which, again, a year ago did not seem like a very viable possibility, given both where the market demand was and any incentives. And last is that there's some R&D grants that we already received one a few years ago from the Department of Energy, but now there's more and more coming. And those are great for funding more and more R&D, which is really the key to becoming leaders in the industry. So just a brief summary, and happy to answer questions later, and thank you for your time.